A post-study work visa in New Zealand is clearly the big prize after you finish studying. New Zealand studies are not cheap. Worldwide recognized universities make studying here pricey. But at the end of the day, a post-study work visa, an open work visa, any job, any employer, anywhere in the country, gives you the chance to settle into New Zealand, to show to employers how you can contribute, and then most likely proceed to a pathway for residence. So students often come to make sure that they get this open work visa, which otherwise would not be available. So let's look at what is required for a post-study work visa and what you need to do to make sure you get one. First of all, you must study in New Zealand. You cannot study online with a New Zealand institution offshore. There are requirements of how long you have to study for each type of qualification in New Zealand to be eligible for a post-study work visa. With very few exceptions, you must study a bachelor degree and higher. There are a very small number of studies that you can do, 1 year usually of below bachelor. They're listed in Appendix 13 of the Operational Manual of Immigration New Zealand, and they are usually intended for experienced practitioners who have many years of work experience and who then want to have a refresher, a short 1 year diploma in a specific industry, highway engineering, quantity surveying, nursing, things like that. Generally, a post-study work visa only bachelor and up. You must study in New Zealand, and if you have a 3-year bachelor degree, you get a 3-year post-study work visa if all 3 years have been studied in New Zealand. If you got credit for some time you studied overseas and you only have to do 1 year or 2 years of study in New Zealand, you get a post-study work visa only for that length of study in New Zealand. For a master's, for example, at least 30 weeks a year required in New Zealand for study, and they count every day of your studies. They take away the break times, and they look whether you have been here for 30 weeks of study. Then you're eligible to apply for a post-study work visa. Post-study work visas are for a bachelor and for a master's and PhD at least 3 years. If you study a postgraduate qualification, it is 1 year. If you study below a bachelor, the diploma route, for these very few exceptions, it is the length of the study, usually 1 year. It is important for you to consider that when you came to New Zealand on a visa, for instance, for a postgraduate course, and the school then offers you to upgrade to a master's qualification, that it is a requirement for the post-study work visa that you hold a visa for the study that you claim for the post-study work visa. That means that if you started with a postgraduate diploma, you need to now apply for a variation of conditions so that you hold a new visa for the master's study to then be able to apply for the 3-year post-study work visa for a master's. Very important to make sure that the length of your study for that master's is the required length of at least 30 weeks. Quite often, schools give you a credit for the postgraduate study time, and that leaves a very short duration for the master's, insufficient to then get the 3-year post-study work visa. These are generally easy visas to apply for by yourself. You need to have finished the studies. You have to have finished the studies for the studies on your visa. It seems like simple requirements, but if you are not studying the full length in New Zealand, or if your study pathway has changed while you're in New Zealand studying, come and ask a group of experienced immigration advisors to make sure that you have a chance to apply for that post-study work visa. It is a great start to showcase in New Zealand what you can do. Now, If for whatever reason during the post-study work visa you cannot find a job that leads to employment and residence long-term, look at it this way. You come to study a bachelor, 3 years. You get a post-study work visa, 3 years. You're now in the country for 6 years. If that has not been sufficient time to establish yourself for a career towards residence, you can apply for an employer-accredited work visa, a different work visa, 5 years. So you now have been in New Zealand 11 years. If that does not work to establish yourself and to find a pathway to residence after studying, something's wrong with you, not the system. So look at a post-study work visa as a starting point to establish yourself on a pathway to residence. And if you need help, there's a group of people who do this every day who will be happy to answer your questions.